on John Deere and Hagee sprayers. Learn about the newest technology, machine maintenance, spray tip selection, exact apply sprayers, and more. Free dicamba certification will be available. Join Landmark at their sprayer clinic January 31st and February 1st in Kearney. Find more information at landmarkimp.com/events.
On the Block with Strick and Austin.
If Ewers throws that ball to the front pylon, Texas might have tied that game up and had a chance to win it.
That moment right there, it's one of those moments that every young man dreams about. There's two outcomes in that moment. You're a gamer or you tense up.
You're a gamer, you're a goner.
Or you're a goner.
Weekdays from 2 to 4 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket.
Okay, playing 93.7 The Ticket.
Alexa, turn down the lights.
Dimming the lights.
Alexa, order a pizza, the big one, all the toppings.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Alexa.
That's a lot of pizza for just one man.
Alexa, just do it. Stop judging me, just do it.
As you wish.
Thanks, Alexa. You're my best friend.
Adoption of teens from foster care is a topic not enough people know about, and we're here to change that. I'm April Dinwiddie, host of the new podcast, Navigating Adoption, presented by Adopt US Kids. Each episode brings you compelling real-life adoption stories told by the families that live them with commentary from experts. Visit adoptuskids.org/podcast or subscribe to Navigating Adoption, presented by Adopt US Kids. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Administration for Children and Families and the Ad Council.
This is your captain. We are going to be experiencing some slight turbulence. Please fasten your... Oh, hold on. Just got a video of my cat.
Imagine the pilot of an airplane was as confident as you are texting and driving. Seems kind of crazy when you put it like that.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Sometimes I just cannot believe all the storms we've gone through here. I can only hope that we'll be able to leave this house to you one day, baby. You're our legacy.
Planning for these disasters will make sure we're safe, and is the best way to protect that legacy.
Protect your legacy. Visit ready.gov/plan for the tools and tips you need to start your emergency preparedness plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket.
Okay, playing 93.7 The Ticket.
Alexa, turn down the lights.
Dimming the lights.
Alexa, order a pizza, the big one, all the toppings.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Alexa.
That's a lot of pizza for just one man.
Alexa, just do it. Stop judging me, just do it.
As you wish.
Thanks, Alexa. You're my best friend.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
How was your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so excited. I had to text all my friends right then to talk about it. Then someone started calling me and...
Let's try that again.
I turned my phone off right away. I never drive distracted.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Old School with DP and J.
DPGM. What are you going to do to Caleb Williams? What are you going to do? You going to draft him?
No.
You're not going to draft him?
No, I don't. Here's my thing. I don't want anybody to know. I'm not going to bring poison into my program because that's what it would be. He's letting you know he's poison. He's venom. Why would I put poison in my own soup?
Maybe you think you're a mongoose. You can't.
I have zero.
You're a mongoose. You can take the cobra venom.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Live from the 93.7 The Ticket studios in the heart of Lincoln, America. This is Inside the Huddle with Nebraska Football Hall of Famer Jay Foreman.
Fires a pass, and it's intercepted by the Huskers at the 25, Jay Foreman. And Foreman takes it down to the 19-yard line of Oklahoma. Another big play by the Blackshirts.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Sponsored by Advanced Medical Imaging.
What up? Good morning. Good late late morning. I guess this is brunch time. An odd time for Inside the Huddle with Jay Foreman, like was mentioned, brought to you by Advanced Medical Imaging, located at 7601 Pioneers Boulevard. We are in day 3. That seems like day 300 of snow and cold Mageddon, right, Harrison?
Yeah, it's pretty rough. My car took a few tries to get it to turn over this morning.
Yeah,
a little bit of panic set.
Yeah. I mean, it's so cold it's gonna freeze the inside of sometimes of your windows and stuff like that. So you just gotta. I always implore people to be safe. Don't go out unless it's necessary. Obviously, I think the snow is done snowing for a while, but just the temperatures, and you just never know how cars will react to this type of temperature. And before we get into sports and Inside the Huddle, it's funny. Everybody says, "Oh, well, you're from Minnesota, so you should be used to it." No, you just know how to navigate it.
Yeah, that's the best way to. I like that term more.
Yeah.
I'm never cool walking outside and it being -20. I ain't cool with that.
Yeah, I think people think, "Oh, you went to middle school and high school in Minnesota, so you just have like I got a different blood type and I'm just like built different." Now, I like to think I'm built different, but I still have the same human feelings and blood. And plus, I'm older and beat down now and broke up, so it definitely gets to the bones a lot faster. But one thing I always try to tell people, when they ask about it, when you're out in these elements, it's not time to be cute. You don't got to worry about matching. You don't have to worry about anything else but being warm, and that's the most important thing, and being safe. And so, don't
be driving with a low tank of gas. Like, do yourself a favor, get yourself a full tank in case your car gets stuck somewhere. You don't want to be sitting there with
in the
no
cold.
gas.
Yeah, always keep it on at least 3/4 full tank, and then also, as we're seeing it right now, where we're looking out here in O Street, it's still pretty icy out there just based on the temperature and stuff like that. So always be careful, give enough space. So with that being said, Inside the Huddle we'll do a little bit of Husker talk real quick, and then we'll jump right into the NFL playoff weekend. And so as far as the Huskers go, I think, it was right on the very end where we had 2 commits, right? Isaiah Nair. And that was it. I think Isaiah Nair was the only one last week, right? The receiver.
Isaiah Nair, did we get that linebacker? Did he commit?
He did, but then that's where we left off. But then we were waiting on Jamal Banks.
Yep.
And we were waiting on Stephon Thompson, the linebacker from Syracuse. We had a linebacker that was potentially going to come from Idaho, and he didn't come, right? And so he canceled his visit, and I think he's going to USC or something like that. But without further ado, we did get a commit from Jamal Banks, a 6'4", 210-pound receiver, very productive. I think he had about 700 yards last year at Wake Forest. And then we got Stephon Thompson, which is a really good get at 6. He's about 6'1", 245, 250. I'm assuming he's a middle linebacker just for the simple fact of his height and weight, which is a big glaring hole. And I think we'll start with Stephon Thompson. I look at it like with him, Harrison, is that you get a player and a half. And I always say this when, they're bringing qualities and maybe even 2 players. So you're getting Stephon Thompson, the player that had 60 or about 62 tackles this year after a little bit of an injury plague year to year before. Then you're getting the other player as far as the leadership qualities as a middle linebacker and productive. And then also you're getting the player that already knows the Tony White system inside and out, because he has been in the Tony White 3-3-5 system a lot longer than anybody else on this roster, right? And so where he's able to, obviously he has to come in and compete and live up to everything that, he thinks he is and what Nebraska's hoping he is. But he knows what Tony White expects. He knows what Tony White needs from a middle linebacker. And then also he knows what it takes to be successful. So as he's maybe trying to mentor and nurture some of the younger guys like the Dylan Rogers, Mekhi Gabears, or if say like Jamari Butler does, he kind of jack of all trades. He's a guy they can lean on because he's been in that position, and also being a middle linebacker, he's already been a selfless player. Is that you have to line everybody up and you have to do those things. So I think it's a really good get for Nebraska, and Tony White knows him better than any recruiting analyst, any media head like me and you, or anybody that can I guess that what type of person he is. Tony White knows who he is. He's seen him He's pushed him. He knows what he wants and he knows what to expect from him. So I think it's a really, really good pickup for Nebraska, and probably one of the best ones because when you lose Luke Reimer to potentially going to the NFL, then Nick Henrich is hanging him up after unfortunately having a late season, I think ACL injury again, and he'd been pretty injury plagued since pretty much since his senior year in high school, so it wore him down a little bit. But you're losing two productive players, two guys that were tremendous leaders in the locker room. And so you don't replace that, with on your roster. So this is why when Matt Rule said he wants to be 90-10, you want to be able to go, and I call it delicacy shopping. You want to know exactly what you need, find the person or persons and go get it. And he fits the script. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it too. I like what you mentioned too. You're going to be losing some veteran. Reimer, he knew the system pretty well. He was an obvious leader out there, really knew the scheme well, did well with it first year in that 3-3-5 system, but coming from Syracuse with Thompson, I think that's big. You just got a guy, like you said, I think that experience, losing that in Luke Reimer.
And getting it right back.
Luke Reimer was a really smart player.
Right. Yeah,
like, for everything I've seen him play, his ability to pick up defenses on the fly, I feel like you're going to be missing that. So you had a guy who's been in Tony White's system. He's going to have the rapport with Tony White already. It should feel like a pretty natural plug. Right. And if he's, able to, if everything looks great in practice, he should be an impact player sooner than later.
Yeah, and look, I think the great thing about it, he's willing to come here and believe in what we're doing here in Nebraska. He believes in Coach White. I think, one of the biggest offseason, I guess let's call it the portal gets is the re-signing of Coach White. I know it was a big deal. We've talked about it exclusively on a couple Inside the Huddles, but when you get a transfer portal that's directly associated with them, that's why you have to really give it credit because it brings stability to that side of the ball. It brings continuity and it brings an expectation. He knows what he wants and knows what he likes. He fits the script, and
worked out pretty well for Mickey Joseph and Trey Palmer.
It did.
When you have those connections.
When you have those connections, you know what they are, and then they need a chance, and they're coming in with a chip on their shoulder. Tony White knows what buttons to push. It can help with Dvorak as far as being able to alleviate a little bit of stress of coaching some other guys up, and where you can do, depending. Look, he's an asset to Dvorak. You get what I'm saying? I mean, the stress level for him, he should be sleeping good, even when at least a little bit better.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and so that's a great get. The next one, obviously, we got Jamal Banks. One thing I liked about him, I don't know if you've seen his quotes or whatever. He said, "Look, this is business." He said, "I'm here to do." Pretty much, he said, "I'm here to do work."
Yeah, which okay? I know what you're talking about.
I like that. I like that. I like it.
Seems rare in today's era.
He's keeping it real. He knows exactly where it's at. I think Nebraska was his best opportunity and best chance to elevate himself. I think the signing of Dylan Raiola and Daniel Kalen, I guess for say, and then obviously with Harburg coming back, I think he felt that it's a really good opportunity for him. I think being here or Dylan coming up the same weekend that he was here, he could I've been knowing Dylan for a long time, but for him to be in a college kid to see how mature and elevated mentally that Dylan is, really is appealing to a guy like Jamal Banks that's coming in. He's not your average freshman quarterback from a mentality standpoint. Now Dylan still has to go out there and is going to have some, learning curves. He's going to stub his toe. He's going to go through some downturns. But the best way to, I guess I wouldn't say eliminate it, but to lessen that is having a veteran receiver that he can build a rapport with. Right? He knows he's got to build a rapport with him. Say, okay, 36, I know I can go to him. This is how he can. Jamal Banks can tell him, this is how I like certain routes. This is how I run it. And Dylan can say the same thing. This is what I'm thinking. Then when you got Isaiah Nair, who's a guy that 2 years ago, when he was up at Wyoming, was probably the number one wide receiver option in the portal. He went to Texas. I think Texas football program was in a different state back then. Obviously, they've had a magical year this year, and then in a little bit of last year, he unfortunately got hurt. He's healthy, looking for an opportunity. I would say the chip on his shoulder is probably the size of a boulder. That's what you want there, because that's going to provide leadership. It's going to provide that dog in that wide receiver room, and then it's going to help Doss, Lloyd, Coleman, and all the other freshmen coming in be able to elevate their game at a gradual pace, so it won't be too much too quick. So the expectations won't be so high on those 3 freshmen coming out of last year that every other game they made a play or two, that they have to be productive players in and game out. Now, they should compete like that, but when you have 2 guys that you can emulate, compete against, but then also the older guys can show you, right? Along with McGuire, the head coach, I think that you couldn't probably picture a better portals get to go along with being forced to play those 3 last year, because you had injury plays. Your IGC gets hurt, Betts quits, Washington gets hurt, and Billy Kemp got hurt and was banged up a little bit, even though he started to come on in at the end of the year. Well, those are your top 4 receivers, and you couldn't get all of them on the same field at the same time, let alone 3 after Betts quit right before the season.
Yeah.
And that's essentially, he got hurt. And if he had decided not to play in the spring, you could have maybe went into the portal and got somebody at that. By that time, the portal is closed. The vortex has been closed. So you got to think that Nebraska, I think, has done a really good job of addressing some needs, but then also creating the atmosphere where if guys that are presently on the team, it's not a foregone conclusion that they're not going to sit behind a Justin Fields, say, if you got a portal where you're not going to start, because this dude is the real deal and is the guy that they bring it in to take all the reps and there's positions where everybody's going to play. The next is Micah
Maskua,
I called him, but I was calling him Mazuka the Bazooka.
Bazooka?
Yeah, but I was going Bazooka the Bazooka. That was what I was going to call him, because if you go back and check him out, when they played Tennessee and there was a little scrap after the game,
he doesn't hesitate.
My man was bobbing and weaving, so that lets me know he's got that edge and he's ready to throw hands. Now, look, we got to make sure you're not getting kicked out of the game, but it lets me know a guy that goes to Florida, and Nebraska had been in on him before.
Yeah,
obviously from Baylor,
got the family connections,
right? And it was kind of like a last minute second that he went to Florida. So who knows what the reasons were from there. Played well, started productive.
I think he started all but 1 game.
Yeah,
that was due to injury. I think that was like
so he was their starter, and so to get a starting right guard, legit productive player, from the SEC with that, they already have background on him because they recruited him, I think, at Baylor. And he was a surprise out of nowhere. Now, they must have known. I always say Matt Rule is like this, and I want your read on this. Matt Rule is a guy that, like, you're having a poker match or a poker game in your, in your garage, just with buddies. And Matt Rule just shows up, and then he's the guy that's kind of been, win a hand here, lose a couple. And then the biggest hand, when he shows up, he's like, oh, I got straight flush. It just throws it out there like, you know what I mean? He always seems like he has relationships and things that they're trying to do that people don't know. And I think that's good, because you don't, I think they've also learned, assuming that we had Micah before, or Mike, then Florida came in, and then we had Rouse that coming from Stanford, and Oklahoma came in at the very last second, kind of NIL deal or whatever. So I think, they've learned, from those situations, and especially at that position, which is a position in need, to have a guy that come in and potentially start and set the tone in that offensive line room, along with Ben Scott, is huge. And I was talking about, you get a player and a half when you get somebody that can either provide extreme leadership along with productivity, or productivity with an edge. So I think you're getting productivity, right? Known starter, and he has a little bit of an edge. Now, he has to get better and all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, you got a guy that that you've seen play. It's a little bit safer bet versus, you're recruiting Jay Foreman. He played 2 games 2 years ago as a freshman. 3 years ago, he was a 4-star. Well, that was 3 years ago. We're dealing with just last year, and so it was a really good get for Nebraska. A really good job, and obviously, I think Bly Hill, to start it off in the initial early signing period, was huge too, from St. Francis, right? 6'3", 190. We're gonna get to Dowdell. We're gonna get to him next. He's my favorite and last. And Bly Hill is a 6'3", kind of a Richard Sherman type of corner, 190, 195. His dad, Leroy Hill, was a really good linebacker for the Seattle Seahawks, and I think his mom played basketball, and so he went and wasn't recruited like he wanted, and he went to St. Francis, which is the FCS school. Came in and started as a freshman, 2 picks and like 9 or 10 pass breakups. So he's a pretty good prospect to get, and Nebraska must have had their eye on him very early. you know, kind of identify for him to sign in the early period. There's a guy that they figured like, okay, he fits what we do. Obviously, he plays corner. I've watched a little tape on him. I think he for a big long corner. Now he's long though, Harrison. And what I mean by that is, it's like I know you played basketball. He's a guy that he's 6'3", but his wingspan is like a 6'7". And so
kind of like what Javen Wright is almost a little bit. Javen, he's not the tallest guy. I mean, he's probably a little tall, 6'4", but his wingspan is what makes it uncomfortable for
a linebacker. And we saw for Javen the ability to make that play, I think, against Maryland, where Talia thought it was he could either throw it to his receiver out of bounds. Well, here he comes. He's like Spider-Man.
Long arms.
And that's where he's at. And he has he has really good tracking skills, ball skills. And he transitions pretty well for a long corner. And that's usually the problem, you know, long legs and all that. Pretty good quicks, pretty smooth in his back pedal. Obviously Evan Cooper is, obviously he's going to, coach him up and do whatever, to get him up to where he can compete. But when you lose a Quentin Newsom, and then you got Tommy Hill and, that really stepped up, but still needs to be a little bit more, consistent. And, the rest of the guys have been up and down and not, what you needed to get Bly Hill out of the transfer portal, to get him in here, get him to compete is really good. And then the most important get, I think, Harrison, before we go to break, is my man Dowdell. His first name is Devin? Dante Dowdell, who is a big, strong, powerful running back that was at the University of Oregon. And the thing about him that I like is that Emmett Johnson has showed you he can be a 1A running back in Big Ten. I think he exceeded expectations. I don't know why people thought that he couldn't. I knew about Emmett Johnson a lot more than probably even this staff, because he's from Minnesota, so I knew where his background and kept an eye on a lot of guys from Minnesota. But the weird thing is, one of my biggest high school rivals on the basketball court, Emmett, had a relationship with the dad, and I think he might have dated the daughter for a little while. So I kind of already had an eye on him 2 years even before he came to Nebraska, because of just him starting to get recruited by Nebraska. And me seeing or his name is Kevin, seeing Kevin in the summer during basketball. So I'd see him all the time in Omaha in a couple of tournaments. He'd tell me, he's like, man, I think this kid's good. And Emmett Johnson was a really good basketball player as well. So he's very competitive. But Dante Dowdell comes in about 6'1", 220. When you go back and watch his high school tape, he's not just a straight line bulldozer. He runs behind his pad, so at least at the high school level and a few of the Oregon plays, but then also he has good quicks, right? And he's got good powerful quicks. And if you want to, I don't know, a comparison that you could get, maybe a Leonard Fournette. And granted, he's not Leonard Fournette, but I'm just talking about body type. And when I talk about powerful quicks, is they don't have to be so shifty where they got to make you miss. You just bounce off them if they get an edge on you or create an angle. That's the difference. And the only reason I have different analogies of this is because of me being a defensive player. You have to prepare for different body types, different players. So you have to be able to differentiate, if is he a guy that's, shake and bake where he's going to make you miss. That's the dude you got to play a little different, versus a guy that has he's powerful, but he has just enough quicks that once he kind of gets his foot in the ground and you're not squared up on him, he's going to run right through your, a shoulder tackle or arm tackle. So that's where he's at. And he's showed the best in a couple plays where he's able to, kind of hurdle guys and stuff like that. So that he's got the athletic ability, and he has some home run speed.
Yeah, which you love to have. Having that 1-2 punch is always, to me, I mean, we saw that versus Michigan. It's going to be the Corum game. Here come Edwards with a little bit of style, and he cuts it back a lot faster. Corum's a lot more patient. And Washington was just surprised. They just didn't even have assignments on at the time. He'd break out to the outside. There's no one there. So having Emmett Johnson there, and then, of course, you throw Dowdell in the mix.
Yeah.
You got two guys, a little bit of different styles.
Oh, different body types, different styles. Both of them are going to be competing and getting entrenched in this, Nebraska offense, by led by Marcus Satterfield. I think that's a perfect example when you talked about Michigan in the championship game, right? I think Washington over prepared for Blake Corum, and when and there was no better example if you looked at the middle linebacker. I think his number was 10. he was submarining into Nugent, their lineman, their center. That's what they want. He just absorbs you. And then Edwards was just cutting back, and in the cutback lane was so wide that even the safety that was trying to insert back there, because he's coming from depth, and depth means, if I'm lined up at 5, he's coming from maybe 12, and you got a 5-10 yard space. Edwards is going to make you miss, and he has home run speed. And then next thing you know, you start to prepare for Edwards. Well, here comes Blake Corum. He gets busy where he's more patient and kind of squeezes through there. Again, 2 different body types, 2 different running styles, both of them physical, both of them have home runs. But if you don't know how to prepare for them separately, you will get exposed. And so that's what Nebraska potentially has. And those 2, along with some of the other guys they still have, because you never know if Ramir is going to get another year.
Yeah. And he's just always kind of been that lightning in a bottle.
Right.
Like, just kind of waiting for that.
Right. If you could just keep him healthy, he is your, the asterisk back. He could be your third down back. He could be the guy that helps on a special teams return game, punt returns if you need. He's a jack of all, like a Swiss Army knife. And then you got Gabe Ervin. If he comes back healthy, he was the guy before. And for Gabe Ervin, it's really just been, the injury at Oklahoma was just I think it was a freak injury where you kind of get caught up in a bad part of the turf. And then the hip injury, I didn't even know it happened. And I don't even think he knew until he went. Now, obviously he was in some pain, but 2 freak injuries. So I wouldn't call him necessarily injury prone. I think a little bit of bad luck. And so if you get Gabe Ervin and you get Gabe Ervin to the point back to where, say I think he was running pretty good against Minnesota, running pretty good against Colorado. Now you got 3 backs right there, because you're going to need them in the Big Ten, especially, with the way that we could be potentially be playing. And so I think, Dante Dowdell coming in is really good, and he's coming from a really good program too, where they expect you to be tough and they demand your best. And so I think, as far as the transfer portal where Nebraska's at right now, is really good. I think, in present time, as if you haven't checked out the football teams, I think social media, I don't know which one it was. I'm not big on social media, but the early enrollees have moved in, are moving in. And then I think the transfer portal guys have like a week, and they might be here or not. I don't really look into it, but I know that they're doing something. And so the transfer portal guys will be here, because I think classes start here in the next week or 2. So, they'll be, in it to win it, and hopefully pushing towards a, pretty big season. But I think this staff and what they've done coming off a little bit of 5-7 season that was growth, but a little bit disappointing. Because you lost 4 in a row.
I think Matt Rule would call this not a failure, but he expected, I'm sure,
to get it was kind of like just kind of like, all right, it was just average, right? So coming off an average year to where very easily people could lose faith, question, they seem to crank it up a little bit.
Yeah, I keep going back to no one's really leaving.
No, that's it. That's what my last point was. It lets you know that whatever they have going on down there, as far as communication with the players, and the players being okay with meeting expectations, right? New expectations, new regime, working different language, different expectations. It's obviously been accepted, received, and then also they like it. And I will say this before we go to break. I keep saying it. The locker room that Matt Rule had to take over. I want to give props to, I guess, Scott, Mickey, but particularly Scott and Mickey, or particularly Mickey and Joseph when he took over, because he changed the expectations on the fly. It didn't work out for him. But those players gravitated towards him. Matt Rule's not Mickey Joseph. Mickey Joseph's not Matt Rule. But the foundation of that locker room was in better shape than normally coming in.
How big do you think winning against Iowa was?
I think it was
for Mickey Joseph out the door.
I think it was huge. I think it was finally a payoff, because you got to think of the Purdue game, the Wisconsin game, even like just the ones that like, dang, we lost those games, right? We lost them for Mickey. They were all trying to get, maybe that pressure was there, every week in and week out. You hear like, oh, you got to win, every single game for Mickey, and then you start to kind of you second guess yourself. And then it was like, listen, there is no tomorrow. We did it. I think it was a payoff. And then also it kind of boiled over into, for when Matt Rule came. Now, look, and I'll say this before we go to break. Tommy Hill did not start off on the best footing with Matt Rule.
Yeah.
That's not me overstepping my boundaries. That's just for what I saw. My man wasn't even at the first practice, I don't think. He was like, "Hey, look, bro, you ain't even got out of the starting blocks yet. So don't think you're coming to practice." And then I think he also was, dipping around at wide receiver. DB was kind of, out there. And then something clicked with him. Give Evan Cooper, credit as well. And maybe Tony White, whoever, all those guys. Whatever they came in and did really paid off for Tommy Hill because you saw him start to play more. And I also think, it's giving credit to the staff, even after Tommy Hill fell asleep against Travis Hunter. I don't know how he did that. I mean, look,
that's the guy right there.
It's no backs for, but it happens, right?
Yeah.
Trust me, I've gotten beat and roasted plenty of times, so I'm not sitting up here like I'm better than anybody else. They didn't lose faith in him. Then he started becoming one of your more consistent corners because Hartzog kind of maybe a little bit sophomore slump, and I think he had some injuries that they didn't let out and they were protecting him from, and he kept answering the bell.
Early in the year, too. You could tell 3-3-5. There's a couple times where he just wasn't in the right spot.
Right.
Learning curve, growing pains.
And they didn't put him on the milk carton. So that gives a props out. And then also Tommy Hill stayed at it. So with that being said, that's our portal update. I don't think there'll be any more unless, look, I mean, I wouldn't put anything behind, wouldn't put anything or, past the staff of adding some, but especially with the Alabama dudes coming,
Yeah, who knows how many more we're going to hit the
we
block.
might have to roll down there a little bit. But anyways, we're going to take a break, come back, talk about the playoffs, games coming up, and recap the ones that were just played last night. Jay Foreman, Inside the Huddle, brought to you by Advanced Medical Imaging. We'll be right back.
Introducing The Outlet by Sartor Heyman. The Outlet brings you luxurious Sartor Heyman quality jewelry at unbeatable prices. Shop our expansive inventory of overstocked merchandise and a vast estate collection that just hasn't found its home yet. This is your chance to own stunning designer jewelry at a fraction of the cost. Elevate your style at The Outlet by Sartor Heyman, where luxury and affordability meet. Downtown at 12th and O or online at sartorheyman.com.
Hey, it's me, your cell phone. We need to talk about something serious. I know you love me. I know you like using me wherever you are, but I feel like this isn't working out when you're driving. I know you may think that it's possible to focus both on me and the road, but I just don't feel the same way. I think we should spend time away from each other when you're driving. It's for the best.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Mario fue pintor más de 30 años. Cuando me dijo que se le estaban olvidando las cosas, fue difícil. Un día me dijeron que pintara el marco del lado por dentro y pinté el lado de afuera.
Yo le diría a la gente que le diga a su familia lo que está pasando con él.
Si algo se nota diferente, podría ser Alzheimer. Es momento de hablarlo. Visita alz.org/nuestras historias para saber más. Un mensaje de The Alzheimer's Association y The Ad Council.
Work is never done. You care for the house, the kids, and our future. We're so grateful for all you do. Now it's time to care for yourself and save a little more for retirement. A free 3-minute online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to boost your retirement savings now. Visit aceyourretirement.org/Shiro today.
A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you notice a 16-year-old boy who got his first job,
not for extra spending money, but to help feed his little sisters?
or a mother who's in between jobs and sometimes goes to bed hungry so her kids can have dinner? Or a 14-year-old girl who signs up to every after-school activity, not to make friends, but just to get something to eat? Or a retiree who fell ill and had to choose
between getting medicine or groceries.
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. People you pass by every day but never knew were hungry. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
Hey, it's me, your cell phone. We need to talk about something. Something serious. I know you love me. I know you like using me wherever you are, but I feel like this isn't working out when you're driving. I know you may think that it's possible to focus both on me and the road, but I just don't feel the same way. I think we should spend time away from each other when you're driving. It's for the best.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Back to Inside the Huddle, sponsored by Advanced Medical Imaging. Here is your host, Jay Foreman.
We're back, Jay Foreman. Inside the Huddle, brought to you by Advanced Medical Imaging, 7601 Pioneers Boulevard. All your needs, all your imaging needs, and they will give you at least for me, they set forth a pain management path there, and then also they have a good team of people they can point you to as well, Harrison.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This time of year, it's cold, joints hurt.
Yeah, but it's every day. It doesn't matter. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't think it's Father Time is not it is undefeated against Hey, listen, here's the thing about Harrison. I think over the last year, Father Time was like, I'm just gonna just crank it up on you a little bit. I'm just gonna just mess you up. I don't know. I spent especially when you're snowed in, last couple of days, what did I do to Father Time?
How old are you right now?
On the books or off the books? No, I'm 47.
47?
Yeah.
Okay, well that makes sense. Yeah, it's 50. This is like your pre-season workout.
Yeah,
when you get to the top of the hill.
You know what it is. You know what it is.
Real.
Father Time said, "Listen, man, I told you to come into training camp in shape, so now you know what I was meaning." All so, anyways, this is our NFL playoff edition of Inside the Huddle. 2 games yesterday, Harrison. Cleveland at my Houston Texans. The Texans represented. I think Houston was. Everybody thought, with C.J. Stroud, D'Amico Ryans is it's a cute story. Obviously, Houston is their head coaching practices over the last couple years has been flat out horrible. Dave Culley, 1-year rental. He got like an NFL parachute package. And see you later. Lovie Smith who was interviewing all the candidates. And the funny thing about this is, before we get to D'Amico Ryans, they interviewed. I forget his name. He was a quarterback. Or they interviewed Hines Ward, who never coached before. But the quarterback, Heward or whatever, he was the quarterback coach at Carolina before everybody got fired. And part of the reason why they drafted Bryce Young. And he had never coached. He was literally on the Philadelphia Eagles practice squad. You know, remember when during COVID you could be on the practice squad but not have to practice? Like, hey, Harrison, you want to be on the practice squad? Sure. I'll zoom in for meetings and you can pay me $200,000. You could have called and asked me to be on the practice squad. What's up with that? Well, anyways, Lovie Smith was conducting all the interviews. And they said, you know what? You conduct those interviews dang good. And you know what? You were a really good coach with the Bears. Would you like to be the head coach of the Texans? Sure. You have no talent. Yet we drafted Davis Mills as a third-round quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He showed life. And they were flat out garbage again. No talent. And they didn't have a lot of – they were at bad cap year, you know, because of Bill O'Brien and all that stuff when he was a head coach and GM because Rick Smith's wife, unfortunately, you know, succumbed to cancer. Cancer sucks, by the way. And anyways, then they said, you know, Lovie Smith was bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then it came down to Houston on the road at Indianapolis, kind of like this year.
Yeah.
And literally part of the reason why Lovie Smith got fired because he played to win and beat the Colts last year. And I remember it was on every network. How could you do this? Lovie Smith was like, hey, I'm still the head coach. I'm trying to win. He thought he was actually going to be the head coach still. Bro, I knew you weren't the head coach. I had to dime on you anyways. So anyways, thank God for Dave Tepper, right?
Mm-hmm.
He decided for whatever reason, remember the CJ Stroud, he didn't do good on the Wonderlic, right? And CJ Stroud is like, I'm not a test taker. I'm a football player. Listen, I took the Wonderlic. You don't even, I think they just decide who they want to do well on the Wonderlic.
Yeah. What is break that down?
It's like, they'll ask you questions, science questions. And first, the big part of it, you got to finish it.
Mm-hmm.
Another big part, you got to take it serious. And they're trying to, it's a test taking thing to try to make a correlation between decision making or if you're smart. I don't believe that because I know plenty of doctors that have trouble taking their boards, but they're great doctors. And once they figure out how to take a test, that doesn't mean that you're not smart. You just got to learn how to take it's a process of elimination and all that. You know, CJ Stroud didn't do well on it. Or up to, you know, first of all, it's supposed to be all confidential. Magically, CJ Stroud's comes out that he didn't do well.
Yeah, those stories were crazy too. It was all over the place.
Right. And then the other things, how the GM's asking people about their parents and all this other stuff. But anyways, so Bryce Young, who's a great quarterback in college, I think he's going to end up being good. Unfortunately, gets picked by the Panthers. I've seen that where you don't have a running back, you don't have an offensive line, and you do not have a receiver. I saw it with David Carr.
Yeah, Tom Brady would struggle there.
Anybody would. Joe Montana, everybody would. They were dead set on Bryce Young. Felt like he was probably the safer pick. I don't know why, because C.J. Stroud single-handedly, literally destroyed the best defense in college football in Georgia, and was one cheap shot against Marvin Harrison Jr. from winning the national title. How soon they forget. Well, then he falls to Houston, right? And you got to think, Cesario almost got ran out of town because he came from New England with the expectations, and he was well. First of all, he hired Dave Culley, fired him. He hired Lovie Smith, fired him. Okay, you're giving away a lot of free money here. So people in Houston were thinking about him being jettisoned, and he's not a out front GM. He's very behind the scenes, which I respect. Well, he drafted C.J. Stroud, number 2, and had him number 1 the whole time. So the original real reason why they were mad is because they thought they might lose out on getting C.J. Stroud. And then he pulled off the caper of all capers and traded up, right, from number 9 to number 3 to get the best player in the draft, Will Anderson Jr. So you're getting 2 gold star prospects, along with you hired D'Amico Ryans. Ryan, yeah, former player, right, played after me, tremendous leadership skills, comes highly recommended as a player and leader, was in Nick Saban's first class at Alabama, first 2, played the first 2 years. Phenomenal player. It was ascending in the coaching ranks for like 3 years. And you got to think about all the teams that overlooked him because, you're just he started out as a linebacker coach, co-coordinator, went out to San Fran, defensive coordinator. They start taking off, and then people were like, yeah, we don't know. Houston hires him. And then next thing you know, you repair the relationships with the alumni. You repair the image of your franchise. You repair the energy of your franchise. You give it optimism and hope. and you also give it, real enthusiasm that actually we have good decision makers. You knock it out with the head coach, you knock it out with the quarterback, you knock it out with a defensive stalwart, along with you drafted Stingley the year before, that was healthy, and some other guys. You got Nico Collins from Michigan.
He was going off yesterday. He's going to be a problem.
And then they got the local product in the third round, and Tank Dell, that would have probably been 1,100 yard receiver, but he got hurt. And so you hit it with a couple drafts, and then you get some good coordinators in there, and they match the coordinator with their quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You bring back Laramie Tunsil, and they signed their right tackle. They got a better offensive line.
Yeah, they still got Damian Pierce, who he was a little more down this season.
Right, he was down this year, but you traded for Singletary or signed him, pretty much a real cap friendly deal, and he steps up for 900 yards, and then there you go. And then we got Dallas Schultz from the Dallas Cowboys, and with a defense that's led by Malik Collins, former Husker, black shirt, and a stalwart in there where you trust him. And then you got I think Khalil Davis there, where he comes in and is playing well. You got my man Blake Cashman, who I know been knowing since he was a little kid and trained him, by the way, at University of Minnesota. And then the next thing you know, you're in the playoffs, and then you get to play a home playoff game. And then Houston had been 0-4 in first weekend wildcard games. 0-4. That means with all those great teams that they've had with J.J. Watt, Andre Johnson, couldn't win.
Well, you remember those times it was like Watson, he'd be walking out, and J.J. Watt, I think they even caught it on camera. He was like, I'm sorry. You deserve better than this.
Right.
They had an offense at one point in time, just no defense behind it.
And Gary Kubiak. And then Bill O'Brien would all of a sudden start to just try to be like Tom Brady in New England. Didn't work out in the playoffs. But they faced the hottest team probably in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco. You just got torched by Amari Cooper and Joe Flacco. That was probably put him out there.
It was like only a couple of weeks ago, too.
Yeah. But guess who didn't play that game? C.J. Stroud. The slew foot slayer was back. Houston opened up a can of 45-14. Big ups to the city of Houston. And then the Jake Sorensen Bowl. The Miami Dolphins that had to go on the road to 30 below zero weather because they lost to my Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You knew it was over after they lost to the Bills. Let's say this much. Like, you're heading down to a cold Kansas City.
Yeah. And you have a small quarterback, and you're a gimmick type of offense, and you just have lost not only to Buffalo, you got destroyed the week before against Baltimore. And so the rivalry game is going to be close against Buffalo. So Baltimore game was more like what you saw yesterday, the road team against Kansas City. And Miami looked horrible. They looked uninterested in playing. I know they had some injuries, but they were fully loaded on offense. They were supposed to be the number one offense in the NFL, and tried to go tit for tat with Patrick Mahomes and his offense that Andy Reid and those guys got to get motivated and really get a good game plan together. The score was 26-7, but Kansas City could have scored 14 more points. So it was a blowout and a beatdown.
Are we going to have the conversation that Tua can't throw the deep ball again this offseason? There's been a few times where it looks like he's putting all his mustard behind it, and it's like going 30 yards down the field.
He needs to go. I don't know how big of a golfer you are. He needs to learn how to throw the ball as if he's playing in the British Open. His trajectory is way too high in the elements.
That's what, especially when he was in KC. I'm like, you're throwing that thing up in the wind.
Yeah, you got to learn how to control. And so I think when you have a timing offense, that's what you do, and you have so much speed, you're used to them running underneath it. But if in the cold, you're not the ball isn't going to travel with the same velocity, and you're not going to be able to create that much separation because of the footing. If you saw it on the Twitter, Snead essentially bum rushed Tyreek Hill on man press, so it throws off your timing. They didn't adjust. Kansas City adjust. Miami's going home with a lot of regret of what if. You were 8-3, and Jake Sorensen got on our radio waves and said Miami's going to the Super Bowl. Now they're out after 1 week. Sorry, Jake.
How many is that in a row now that they've lost in the playoffs?
3.
3 years?
Yeah, 3. And Jake Sorensen said it every year. But see, here's where I knew that Jake wasn't really a Dolphins fan. He had a chance to go to the game and didn't go.
He had a chance to go to the Purdue game as well.
Yeah, didn't go.
I don't know if he's a real fan.
Yeah, I think it's just. I mean, listen, man. Come on, Jake. You know, you're always saying fins up. You know, now Jake is missing in action. We still have an APB out there for Jake Sorensen. Hopefully he's not frozen out here on O Street somewhere. But that's the recap. And then we are going to give, I'm going to give my predictions here after the break on the games today, which is 2, and the 2 games on Monday. And then we're going to send you off. Jay Foreman, Inside the Huddle, Advanced Medical Imaging. We'll be right back.
The captain, Vershawn Jackson.
I used to be a weight guy. I used to love weight.
You ain't never been a weight guy. That's a lie.
Let me tell you something.
You've never been a weight guy.
I was in a 300-pound club
No,
in
sir.
high school.
Yes. No, sir. Are you kidding
Yes.
me? That 315 pounds would have sent him through the. It'd have been 6 feet under trying to figure out how to get up out that hole.
That's how
you ain't never been nowhere near that platform to get up there for lifter of the year.
I don't want to be lifter of the year. I want to be the player of the year. You want to be a lifter of the year when you want to be the player of the year. Nobody care about weights.
On the block with Strick and Austin.
If Ewers throws that ball to the front pylon, Texas might have tied that game up and had a chance to win it.
That moment right there, it's one of those moments that every young man dreams about. There's 2 outcomes in that moment. You're a gamer or you tense up.
You're a gamer, you're a goner.
Or you're a goner.
Weekdays from 2 to 4 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. My service never stops.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
I think it's just vapor. Vaping is safer than smoking, isn't it?
There's really not even that much nicotine in them, right?
One vape pod has as much nicotine as 1 pack of cigarettes.
My kid
knows it's dangerous. 5.4 million American kids vape, and most think it's harmless. Get your head out of the cloud. Talk to your kid about vaping. Visit talkaboutvaping.org. That's talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Pastor Tom. Did you know there's a place kids can seek out help when they're away from home and something goes wrong? They find themselves in a difficult spot or even a dangerous situation. Maybe another child is bullying them or a stranger is following them. Perhaps on a date and things just go bad. In Lincoln, here's where they can find help. It's called Safe Place. Safe Place is a national program for children taking place in thousands of cities across the United States. The People City Mission is sponsoring this program in our community and has set up a number of businesses, fire stations, schools, and nonprofits around the city to become safe locations where kids can seek out help. They just need to look for the big yellow sign that says Safe Place on it. Then go inside and ask for help. We will be quickly connected to them and ensure they make it back home or to whatever resources are needed. If you'd like to find out more about Safe Place and ways in which you can get involved, just go to pcmlincoln.org. Remember, when we all do a little, we change a lot.
My early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take, but it gave my mom and me more time to plan together.
Talk to your family about seeing a doctor. Go to alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Discover a healthier, happier you with Weight Loss Professional Nutrition. We are not about quick fixes, but real, sustainable change. With our advanced nutrition plans, expertly designed by our certified nutritionists, we're with you at every step on your weight loss journey. Step into the world of well-being with Weight Loss Professional Nutrition, where we believe in the power of smart diet choices. Visit weightlossprofessionalnutrition.com today or call 800-597-3991 to get 30% off your first month and start your transformation. A new you is just a click away or a call to 800-597-3991.
Early break with Sip and Jake.
So he can maybe run a little
So like
bit.
speed option, those things, all you want to do.
Speed. I can't see him.
It's also
Oh, look what you did. Look what you did. Look at Bill.
Down.
Come on
Just
now.
calm down.
I don't say anything about semicolons or should there be a
Word
parentheses or
Too many commas over there.
too many
Come on.
run-on sentences. Don't talk about that. It's not my wheelhouse.
Early break with Sip and Jake from 6 to 8 every weekday morning. You're listening to Inside the Huddle with Jay Foreman, sponsored by Advanced Medical Imaging.
We're back. Jay Foreman, brought to you by, or Inside the Huddle, brought to you by Advanced Medical Imaging. I'm going to give quick predictions before we send you off. It's Sunday. It's Green Bay Packers at Dallas Cowboys. Make a break for Mike McCarthy. I think Dallas pulls it out. I think Dallas is really, really good at home. I think Green Bay will give them a battle because I think Green Bay's defense matches up pretty decent with them. I think Jordan Love in that offense is probably a year away. Still need a really good receiver. But shout out to Samari Toure, one of the top 3 or 4 receivers for Green Bay. But I think Dallas wins. The game of the day will come tonight is the Los Angeles Rams at Detroit Lions. Matt Stafford, Jared Goff switched teams in a trade. Jared Goff had taken the Rams to the Super Bowl. McVay said that wasn't good enough. We need Matthew Stafford. He won it, and they were thought to be on a down turn this year, and I think they've exceeded expectations. I think they've drafted really well. Kyron Williams, the running back, is third in the NFL in rushing. Probably would have led the league in rushing if he wouldn't have missed 3 or 4 games. Cooper Kupp is on the mend. But Detroit with Jared Goff at home, it's hard to bet against. This is a toss-up for me. I'm going to go Detroit because I like Dan Campbell. Mr. Ankle biter, kneecap breaker,
Bite kneecaps.
Yeah, and Aaron Glenn is a former teammate, and I think he'll have that defense ready to go.
Yeah.
And they're pretty good at the second level as well. So I'm gonna go with Detroit. And then on Monday, I don't even have to say this game. Sorry, AD. It's Pittsburgh at Buffalo. The game was moved because originally it was supposed to be today. Inclement weather, 3:30, CBS. I'm not even sure if I'm going to be able to do old school. We better have it on in here, or else I'm not playing. Buffalo's winning. Big, too.
Yeah, I think out of all the games, this is the
we need to be listen. It's going to be cold up there. Josh Allen needs to do your thing. This is the unique game right here. Philadelphia Eagles on the road at Tampa.
I like this game.
It's the team that's on the slide, which is Philly. A.J. Brown is out for this game.
That's big.
Jalen Hurts has a messed up index finger, I think, on his throwing hand.
It's his throwing hand. Index finger.
Yeah, and it looked horrible.
Yeah.
They haven't played well, and they have, if not the best roster, one of the best rosters on offense and defense in the league.
Yeah.
And
they're weird. They do not get explosive plays through the ground at all, which is unique because you would think a team with the best offensive line is going to have explosive running plays. They are ranked towards the bottom.
Right. And you know what's crazy? I think the first game of the year, they didn't run DeAndre Swift the first game. Then the next game, he had like 150 yards. It'll be interesting to see if Nick Sirianni can get these guys focused in a week or get more out of them. They look like, I hate to say it, because I'm not big on lost like but that's a team that looks like they're just checked out.
Where's the disconnect with that organization? X's and O's, players,
they lost two of their coordinators. They're both head coaches now. One's at Indianapolis, one's at Arizona. And so that you lose that's a huge loss. And losing one, you can recover. Losing both of them is different. I don't think the play calling is different. I think Jalen Hurts had a magical year last year. Again, it's his first full year of starting. Now people have tape on you, know your weaknesses. I think ego's gotten into it. And I think Sirianni is one of those dudes that it's really good to have that type of personality and coach when you're doing well. But when it's not, it can wear on you and it can come off as a little bit too much. And I think it's more or less on the defense. I think that the pass rush isn't there like it was last year, primarily because they're not playing with the same amount of leads. And I think they're struggling really bad at the back end, the safety position. And teams are able to stick to it.
So who you going with? I think I'm rolling with Baker Mania.
Listen, Baker Mayfield, did you ever see that when he was mic'd up and ran the DB over saying, get your weight up?
Yeah.
Just for that alone, and he playing at home, and he's playing. This is probably the best year since he's been in the NFL before he took Cleveland to the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'm going with Baker Mayfield and Levante David, Tampa Bay Bucks at home, survive.
Mm-hmm.
And then who knows, we'll be coaching the Eagles by Monday or by Tuesday.
That'd be crazy.
His job is on the line. Quiet as kept. Some people in the NFL told me how they play if they lose, and then how it looks. He could be gone and just went to Super Bowl. Well, anyways, hey, appreciate you guys tuning in for an odd hour inside the huddle. Jay Foreman will be back on schedule next week. Stay warm, stay safe. We'll holler at you next week.